Good morning, everyone. I'm Lori Winters, founder CEO of Thread, and I just want to welcome everybody to our town hall, to our webinar today. It's been a little bit since we've had one of these, and we just decided we wanted to do something to help our clients. So this is just for our clients for year end, because we know year end is a busy time. It's a busy time for us because we're trying to help you guys finish your year out from a payroll and a payroll tax perspective. So our goal here is just to help deliver a little information that will help you guys get prepared for year end, and will help year end for us go smoother so that we can get everything out to you guys as quickly as possible. So just a couple housekeeping notes. Right now you're on mute, but you can chat your questions in the lower right-hand corner, and we're going to try to get to those questions at the end. If we can't, we will make sure that we get answers. We'll get your account manager to reach out directly to you to answer those. And then up in the upper right-hand corner, there's an event board. You can click on that to get resources and slides under shared files. And so you'll be able to get information up there. You'll also be able to get instructions if you have a problem with the audio here, you have problem connecting. It will give you instructions on how to connect through just audio. Within 24 hours, you'll get a follow-up email linking to this recording and the slides. And if you have any questions or you don't get a copy of that, you can always email marketing@threadhcm.com. And since we are in this crazy hybrid, part virtual, part in office environment, we just ask for a little bit of grace because you could hear dogs or people, children or whatever, doorbells, UPS. So we just ask for a little grace on that. So without further ado, I want to thank you again for being a client of ours. We appreciate your business, and we hope that this is beneficial for you guys. And I want to introduce our A-list here. You got the A team. Got the A team here. We've got Matt Micham, who is our COO, and he is going to kick us off as soon as I close my mouth. We are going to have Brandon Perry, who is our superstar account manager. Some of you may know him. He may be your account manager, so we pulled him in. He loves this kind of stuff, but actually has an incredible voice, so you'll hear that soon. And then we've got Scott Mastley, who's our Chief HR Officer, and he's going to do just one or two slides quickly at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to my team here. And Matt, you're up.
All right. Lori, thank you so much. And as Lori said, we are so grateful, especially in a crazy year that this has been, but we have been so grateful for y'all. And so we really wanted to spend just a little bit of time together to give you a couple best practice tips. Our ultimate goal here is to make sure that there's less headaches. You got happier employees, happier managers, and all that can be done by just a little bit of preparation going into this time. So I know for many of us, it's like taking a sip from a fire hose. This life and this year has already been just so disorienting in so many ways. So we really, really want to help you and spend a little bit of time to make sure some best practices from things that we've learned. This is actually going to be, I think, my 14th year end. I used to have a full head of hair prior to this, but it's faded pretty quickly. But our goal today is to go over some key dates and deadlines. So we really want to make sure that we're clear, you're clear, that we know what are certain deadlines that we need to hit, especially with everything being as crazy as it is. Brandon's going to talk to you a little bit about some data review. There's a couple reports in isolved. We've got about 4 or 5 in specific that we want to make sure that every client goes and looks at. It will save you so much future pain by looking through those reports. So we'll go through those together. And then for many of us, you're going to be running special payrolls. Maybe it's a bonus run. Maybe it's something that you're going to do that's one-off. We want to go through some tips that some of our clients have learned along the way and some don'ts as well. So we're going to cover that. And Scott, finally, will cover some HR tips to help your team moving into your best year yet. So let's jump in. So we get this question a lot, like we're working around the clock. I know you are as well, but there are a couple holidays. We do like our team to be with their families. So we did want to let you know with Christmas falling on a Friday this year, which we're very, very excited about. But Thread will be closing a little bit early on Christmas Eve. We typically try to close up about 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 24th, though we will have kind of a skeleton crew on call till about 5 p.m. So really what that means is if you normally process on Thursday, we're just kind of asking to maybe make a note to see if you can process a little bit earlier than normal. I'm sure you probably don't want to be thinking about payroll as well and can start to enjoy Christmas Eve with your family. ACH files, everything's going to be as normal as we typically do. As you know, banks are closed on Fridays for December 25th as well as January 1st, so no money's being moved. And so that is the case for New Year's Day. Again, a lot of times people will call us like last minute being like, hey, can I run payroll through? And we're like, even if we ran payroll, it's not going to matter because the banks are not moving money and passing funds. So we really, really just want to make sure that you plan ahead with it being on a Friday this year. And that, as we look at your processing schedules, which is one of the things that many of you already do this, but we really want to know is like, how is my payroll affected? Let's say you are a Friday check date. Well, when you go into isolved as a client admin on your home page, you can go right down to the bottom. You'll see there's a report where you can do processing schedule. And you'll see that the system has already auto updated your schedule. So if you're on a Friday, most of you usually pay the day before. You'll see the schedule's been built. But we highly recommend you go look at that report to make sure that the dates match what you want them to be for this holiday. The last thing you want is people not getting paid going into a holiday because of a mismatch of the dates. And while you're there, again, this is kind of a power tip, but with 2021, we highly recommend people go and look at your schedule for the following year. Some of you may have 27 pay periods in that year based on the way your calendar falls. So highly recommend you go look at that, make sure everything looks as you would need. If anything you want to change or looks different, please reach out to your account manager and we will be happy to assist you with those dates. So a couple things coming up for December. If there's some things I would tell you to kind of write down or circle on your calendar or put on your phone, these are key. First one is December 11th. And you're like, well, why is that important? Well, you may see at the very top bar, there is a section that says, take the client survey here. We're very thankful that many of you have already taken this survey. It started coming out about 2 weeks ago. But for a few of you stragglers, we really, really need to hear from you. And so your last day to take this survey is going to be coming up on the December 11th. So again, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't done the email on there, hit that red button that says survey here, and please, please do that. If anything you do outside of this, it will cover a lot of what we're talking about today and make sure that this moves very smoothly for you. On December 14th is kind of the following week is when we encourage you to run through all the reports that Brandon Perry is going to tell you to look at. We highly recommend everybody goes through and looks at those by that date. And then on December 22nd, this is kind of a big day, but this will be the final date that you'll be able to make any last minute changes, any taxable items that you need us to add to your pay run. Because what's going to happen after the 22nd is your file, we start to begin year-end procedures. And what that means is basically your file gets locked. And at that point, that's when things start syncing, our tax, our filings, all of that stuff starts to go into place. So again, if you take the survey, you may tell us, hey, I've got third-party sick pay. I need you to keep my account open. But we won't know that unless you tell us. Outside of that is on December 22nd, anybody we haven't heard from or anything is automatically going to get closed on that date so that we can start the processing. And, can you still make changes after the 22nd? Yes. The problem is it's going to probably delay W-2s and it's going to cost you. And we don't want that to happen because for that, we have to reopen records. We have to resync. We have to go back and make edits in our tax department. And that just slows everybody down. And we don't want that for you. And then finally on December 30th, again, last date to process payroll for 2020. So if you want things to show on these employees for these W-2s, December 30th is going to be the last date for that to happen. So again, take that client survey. If you haven't done it, it will explain all of this in much, much more detail than we're doing right now. And then looking ahead, so January, which I still cannot believe we're 20 days away from wrapping up this crazy year. But January 18th, so many of you have selected W-2s to be available online for your employees. And so they will be available on January 18th through the self-service. So if your employees are asking and really trying to get a jump on their taxes, after that date, they'll be able to see them in their system. On the 25th is when you will actually get the W-2s that are being mailed, or for those that have requested paper, will be mailed by that date at the latest. Our goal is to hit that well before that, but from a January 25th expectation, you will get those delivered to you. And then those for the larger employers, where you may have 50 or more full-time equivalent, those that may be subject to ACA. For those that are having us do ACA for you, February 2nd is the date that I'd love you to put on your calendar, because that's when we're going to need you to approve those forms, because they're due by March 2nd to the employees. You can thank the IRS. They extended it again this year. It used to be done around January 31st, but they've extended that to March 2nd as well. So those dates, I promise you, we hit those. A lot of people, it will make everybody a lot happier during that time. If we miss some of these dates, it's not the end of the world, but it just is going to cause probably some hardship and additional cost that we don't want you to have to incur. So a couple things that we wanted people to know about. Still, a lot of you get checks, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. We still deliver out and mail those. But one thing that I do want you to know is UPS, for example, is about to hit a record number of packages that they've ever had in their history of the company. And you can thank COVID for that, but also holiday shopping. We can thank Amazon for that as well. I feel like I've got about 10 packages showing up a day, it seems like right now. But really what this means is UPS is actually, many of you already know this, they've canceled their service guarantee and suspended it for now, and similar to other carriers as well. And what we really, really want to recommend this is don't let this become a problem for you, because we can do everything right, checks, everything delivered. And when we get that hand to UPS, it's in the hands of UPS at that point. And we have very little control at that point. And again, the last thing we want is you waiting to get checks and they're not showing up. So what we're recommending for all those that can is to really anticipate and plan ahead. Knowing that UPS might have some delays, they're not going to maybe hit their normal maybe 2-day window. If you're able, I would really try to encourage you to maybe run the payroll a little bit earlier, maybe try to build in an extra day for delivery if that's possible. Another option is you could potentially look at upgrading your delivery to where maybe it's like a next day air if you're out of state. But again, you can talk with your account manager on this. Some of our clients that are local here in Atlanta are actually planning on picking up their packages, just so they don't have to worry about the headache or the stress of making sure that somebody's there to sign for these checks. Because for many of you, these might be bonus runs or a bonus check that you wanted to actually have printed out versus direct deposit. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that these employees get paid, especially around the holidays. So just reach out to your account manager and keep that in mind for delivery. Last little thing I'm going to mention on some of the delivery, and I'm going to carry it over to Brandon. Again, many of you have done this, but this is a time when people are really trying to go paperless, and we cannot encourage you to save trees, go green. Many of you have already opted into this, but there's still a handful that isn't, that have not. And when we say go paperless, we really want to encourage you, for those that don't do it, is I'd say about 85% of our clients use what we call employee self-service. And that is really a way for your employees to go log into the system, view their pay stubs, view information about themselves, view their W-2s online. So if you still have not considered doing that, or you're still having live checks going out there, please, please, I cannot stress you enough to reach out to your account manager to potentially enable this. For many of you, there's no cost on this. It's an easy way to set up. It's a win for everybody. We're not having to deal with risk of COVID-19 exposure. And honestly, most of our clients that move to paperless end up saving money because we're not having to deal with shipping fees and a lot less stress. And Brandon Perry would probably give me an amen on this one, and knowing and working with clients constantly on this. So just let us know if you want to do that or enable yourself for your clients for that. One last thing on the delivery. And again, many of you have already enabled paperless W-2s. So for those, you're like, I don't want you to mail me W-2s. My employees are going to get them online. They're going to get notified online when they're available. So most of our clients have defaulted to that, as I'd say any of them that have come on board for us in the last 2 or 3 years. But if you're unsure, I wanted to tell you, when you go into isolved, you can go into reporting, run new report, and there is a report called electronic tax form delivery status. So this is where you're just curious of what I might be getting paper W-2s for and who is electronic. The system is going to create an export for you, and you can simply look at this report. And I've got a screenshot of one of the reports. And really the first column you're looking for is that it'll say year-end delivery consent date accepted. And that will show you by employee when that employee electronically consented to receive a online W-2. And if there's a date field missing for one of those employees, means they did not accept it and they want a paper W-2. Or in the odd case that you may have all of those missing, that may mean you just haven't enabled it for W-2s online. So again, reach out to your account manager, reach out to our team. We will help you on that. And then also one thing just to note is, let's say you had a terminated employee this year. Obviously, this has been a hard time for many, many companies. If an employee is terminated during this year, they're automatically going to get a W-2 via paper. So I just want you to know that even if they had consented on it, they said, I want electronic, they'll still be able to see it in the system, but our system is automatically going to generate a paper W-2 that we will mail to you for that employee. So just keep that in note as well. So Brandon, hopefully I didn't miss anything on a couple key dates. All right. Well, before I pass it over to Brandon, these are some things that Brandon's actively been doing with a lot of his clients. And this is one of those things that I tell people, it's short-term pain for long-term gain. I don't know anybody that wants to just sit through a spreadsheet and look through data for looking for errors. But I promise you, if you can just make yourself a cup of coffee and sit down for 45 minutes and go through these handful of reports that he's about to tell you, is going to make everybody happier. And so I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that, how we can avoid any costly minute fees and some of the biggest mistakes that we see clients make. And without further ado, Brandon, all you.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody, and we'll jump right in here. Like Matt said, there's a handful of reports that we really want people to run. We want to try and save you guys some headaches. The first one that I, kind of mentioned to people is, of course, you can always go into the system and really just verify who your employees are to begin with, right? We have, of course, all this data, first names, last names, social security numbers that are in here. Make sure that if they have an address, it's an actual physical address. It's not somebody's backyard or something crazy like that. And then the other thing, of course, is, make sure that their legal name in the system matches what's on their social security card. A lot of times when employees are added in isolved, they get added with nicknames or given names, and we really want to make sure that it matches what's on the social security card. That way we don't run into the problem on the back end when we try to file for you and we hit this error and this, the IRS says, we don't know who this person is. I don't know who Sammy is. We know who Samuel is, but we don't know who Sammy is. That sort of thing. Just something to try and avoid, if at all possible. Okay. And then, of course, we have the Social Security verification report. Again, you can find this is under reporting, run new report, and this is SSN verification report. Ideally, you don't want to have anything on this report, but it'll tell you if there's a field missing or if there's something something off about some employees, then you'll see them on this list. Again, if there's no date field for these employees, then that means the service isn't turned on, and we can do that for you, of course. And again, if you do see a date field next to a name of some of these employees on this report, that means they're getting, they're not going to get paper forms, and we're just going to, like I said, we'll send that paper form directly to them. And again, like Matt said, terminated people will always get a paper form no matter what. Okay. The next item here is, of course, we have a tax ID and rate verification. Again, this is more so for the company, but we want to make sure that we have your tax ID information. As we're filing taxes for year end, we want to make sure we've got all the numbers updated. I know that for some of you, we're constantly bugging you about tax IDs, and I promise you it's not for no reason. It's really, we just want to make sure that we get everything covered so that we don't have to come back to you next year and be like, oh, sorry, listen, we need X, Y, and Z. We just want to keep you from having that headache at all to begin with. Okay. And of course, in the long term, we just want to have this set up for you. You can go in and pull this anytime you want, especially, think about if you're adding new locations or you're adding a new FEIN, that's the time when you really want to pull this report and say, okay, what are we missing? What states do we think we're in? What states are we actually in? And go from there. Okay. And then, of course, we have our good old year-end exceptions report. Again, typically, if you pull this one and you don't get any data, you get a big red message that says no data returned. That's great. It's good for you. Pat yourself on the back because you did a great job. Okay. This is one of those things. Again, if there's no data, that's good. If you do get some data, feel free to reach out to your account manager, whether it's me or Pamela or whoever, and just touch base with them and say, hey, what do we do about this? We want to make sure again that you guys are that you're covered. We really don't want to have to reach out to you during the year-end process when you're busy, when we're busy. It's just no good for anybody. Okay. And then, of course, now some of you know how to do this already. And in fact, I know some of you have reached out to me about this. a couple weeks back. But you can, run a W-2 preview if you want to see what the W-2s are looking like right now. You can go straight there to, reports, run the report, and just get the employee W-2 preview straight out of isolved. Pull it, look at it, see who's going to be getting, ESS, online, see who's going to be printed in paper. This is a report will tell you all that. And that way you just kind of have an idea of like what things are going to look like. And if something's off or something's missing, that way you know in advance, and we can tackle that here in early December instead of early January. And I think that's it for my
Great.
part. But yeah, that's if you have any questions, reach out to us. We're always here. But other than that, yeah, I think we're good, man.
Great. Well, thank you, Brandon. Again, that's probably 30 minutes time to go through to put on your employee size, and it will be time well worth it. Treat yourself to a glass of wine or coffee after you're done with that. So, all right, special runs. So this is a crazy time for everybody, right? We probably get close to 4,000 to 5,000 different additional requests in a 30-day period between special runs, pay runs. So it's organized chaos is probably a nice way to put it. So we wanted to give you a couple tips on special runs and mistakes that we see a lot of times clients make with this. So again, if you haven't taken that survey, I'm going to keep on pushing the little red button, say survey here. If you haven't taken that, please stress that, because it's going to cover in a lot more detail what we're about to talk about. So let's talk about a couple things with bonus pay runs and special runs. So I would say a majority of ours, one of the most popular things is just to run a bonus payroll. And for a lot of companies, they like to run that outside of a normal payroll. And so there's a couple things that we want you to be thinking about beforehand so that you're not surprised after the fact. And we've actually created a little special run checklist that is a part of the resources here that I want you to recommend. It's got a couple check boxes and takes you through a couple questions to consider. Because a lot of times people say, well, I just want to pay myself a bonus. Well, there's a lot more to that actually when you start to peel back the onion. So a couple things for that is let our team know that you're planning on running a bonus. Again, you can do that in the survey. We're here to guide you, help you think through the questions you're not thinking about. But here's a couple things that we run into. One, for some of our larger clients, you may run a bonus pay run that's going to be well above what your normal tax amount would be. And then that may require some special arrangements for funding of taxes. Some of you may hit more of the one-day tax threshold over 100,000. Therefore, you're going to have to wire taxes to us so that we can turn and wire the IRS back that money instantly. So there's something to be considering if you're planning on a large payroll to maybe make arrangements or let us know, and then we'll be able to kind of give you conversation of how we may need to verify funds for that. Another area that people run into a lot is how do you want to do a bonus payroll? Let's say you want to pay an additional $5,000 to somebody. Well, there's ways to be thinking about. A lot of times people will decide to tax that $5,000 differently than their normal payroll. They may not want to kick them into that higher tax bracket. So they may want to do a flat percentage for that, or they may want to bypass or block certain taxes for that specific bonus. And again, that can be, if you don't do this a lot, that can be, you're in isolved, you forget to check this box, forget to check that box. That's when we really ask you to lean on our team to help you. Or even sometimes the clients may go in and enter the information into the pay grid, and then they may reach out to Brandon Perry and say, hey, Brandon, will you double check me? This is what I wanted to happen. Will you make sure I enabled it correctly? So again, lean on our team for that. Another consideration that a lot of people realize is they may just turn it on and they actually realize they didn't want direct deposit. They actually wanted to either hand the check to the person. So that's something you need to make sure when you run that payroll is, did you flag that for direct deposit, or did you actually want to stop direct deposit and have that be a manual check? Another consideration that this happened to a couple clients last year is we have the ability to hide that specific bonus run from their employee self-service. So maybe you are going to run it like 2 or 3 days before, but you don't want to make sure that they see that surprise. We have the ability, if you let us know a time, to block that so it does not show in their employee self-service earlier than maybe you're anticipating them to see it. So again, another consideration there. And then another big one that, again, we see this mistake a lot last year is they realize, oh, I didn't want 401k to come out of that bonus, or I did not want this specific deduction to come out. Well, or I did. Someone said, well, actually, I did want 401k to come out. Again, those are just things to be thinking through that a lot of times people are running fast, moving quick, stressed out, and they hit process and then realize, oops. So these are some things that I would recommend kind of taking a second to think through. look through and use our checklist to help with that. Ooh, another big one. I'm sure Brandon can tell you some stories on this one. So fringe benefits, everybody's favorite. So this is where a lot of headaches are caused for a lot of clients. And usually it's around January 15th and you're like, whoops, I forgot something. So this is where, when we look at certain things, there are things that need to be taxed or be added to that employee's pay that should be considered taxable. And therefore the employee needs to pay their portion of taxes due. It's very hard to do that after the fact once we've closed the year. So a couple of them that we pulled out, again, a survey will go through a lot more in detail, but one big one is group term life. This trips up a lot of people, as most companies just do the 50,000 like normal, but some of you allow coverage in excess of 50,000 for that employee. And anything above 50,000 actually needs to be taxed. So we need to get that amount to like Brandon's team or those to be added into payroll before you run that last payroll of the year so that the proper taxes can be covered for that excess of 50,000. So that's a big one to consider being added. Other areas like gift cards, we see those a lot times. There is owners or managers need to be taxed on special earnings received. So if you're curious of what some of these are, as you go through the survey, we compiled a list of like the top 12 that give people, and you just need to flag it and let us know. And then our team's going to reach out and we'll help guide you and walk you through it. So, and a lot of times too, even though we are your processor, sometimes we fall into like counselor / tax advisor, tax, all of this stuff in multiple roles. But I do want to stress to you, this is a time to really lean on your company accountant or your tax advisor. They're the ones that are really going to give you the advice. We're more of the processor. So, we can help, but I just want to put a little caveat asterisk with that to consult your company advisor. One other last two items that we wanted to say that are really, again, that trip most people up. The other one is S Corporation, the owner's health insurance. So there's two questions I want you to ask yourself is, are you a subchapter S Corporation? So that could be a quick yes or no question. And then the second follow-up is, did you pay the cost of health insurance for anyone who owns more than 2% of the company? And if you can answer yes to those, we need to hear from you. And you need to talk to us and also your tax advisor, but we are going to need to be able to add those amounts before the final payroll of the year to make sure that that flows through correctly on the W-2. This one, I can't tell you, we deal with this one a lot after the fact of, oh, I forgot to do this, or the CPA is starting to prepare some of your corporate returns, and then they noticed you didn't get this to us, and then you're having to reach out to us, and we're having to amend, and it gets really expensive, and it's just, we don't want you to have that headache. So S Corporation, and then the last one, which is everybody's favorite, third-party sick pay. I mean, if this thing isn't more confusing than it already is, but third-party sick pay is probably one of the biggest confusion areas. And part of it is around timing. And we obviously ask you to get us this before the last payroll of the year, but we know a lot of the providers will not provide that till that first week in January, and that's okay. When you go and take our survey, you'll be able to say, hey, flag my account, keep it open a little bit longer so that I can get my third-party sick pay in. And obviously, when we have to keep your file open a little bit to get that third-party sick pay, it sometimes can create a little bit of a delay getting your W-2s and your forms out to your employees. So here's a couple things that best practices. One, when you get that form, explain all the details. I recommend you just forward it to us, send it to Brandon. Don't even guess. Brandon will decipher it and tell you what needs to happen on it. But the questions that we always get a lot of times is, who is actually responsible for doing the W-2 for this employee? Was it you or the provider? That we need to know. That's a simple yes, no, but that gets people a lot of times. And then the other question we usually want to follow is, did the employee pay any portion of that cost premium so that we can make sure that that gets entered in and corrected for the right taxability? And then the final question that we usually ask is, have they been receiving sick pay for more than 6 months? So all of those are going to impact the W-2. And again, our team can keep it open until you get those, but the sooner you can get us those third-party sick pay, again, the happier the employees. And then to wrap it all up before I pass it over to Scott, taxes can be taxing. We all know this. And again, I can't stress, we have such a great team around us to help you. We do not want you to have to try to figure this stuff out your own. Pick up the phone, call our team. Maybe give us a little patience if we're a little bit slower than we normally can dealing with these like 4,000 requests. But again, work closely with your CPA, your tax attorney, and then anything that you think is like a special item, don't guess. Just call us. We'll tell you which way to go. You don't want to guess in this time frame. And the final thing that I would say, and this is from my tax team, I asked them, hey, is there anything that you want to make sure that our clients know? And then what's the biggest thing that trips, clients up? And they said this is probably the biggest thing that trips most clients up, and it's the state unemployment rate changes. And obviously we've had an unprecedented level of unemployment this year. And so we imagine these rates are going to fluctuate for the states that you operate in. But here's the thing is people assume that the payroll companies automatically are getting notified by all the states of, hey, client XYZ's rates changed. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We are as blind as you may be in this area. And so this is where we want to say this is the time, kind of around December, January, that states start sending you notices of different rate changes. And if you do get one of those rate changes, even if you think it's a rate change, just send it to tax@threadhcm.com or send it to like a Brandon Perry, your account manager. And if you really want to help us out, just put 2021, the state and your client name. My tax team would kiss your feet if you did that and going through the different rate notices. But you can imagine we're dealing with like thousands of rate change updates during that time. And the thing that they wanted me to stress on is here's how it plays out if we don't have that information. And usually if we don't get updated, let's say Georgia, your unemployment rate was at 2.7, but maybe you had a lot of unemployment this year, so now it jumped up to 4%. Well, we're going to still continue to capture at 2.7%. And isolved is going to continue to calculate. And then let's say you realize in April that it was actually 4.7. We now have to play catch up on that entire percentage across your base of your Georgia employees. And that is a cash flow thing that people don't want to deal with having to catch up with taxes. So the better you can help us keep those data points in sync, let us know, and then we will make sure to get it updated and in the system. So that was from my tax team, and hopefully I did them proud. All right, I am done talking. I'm going to pass it over to Scott Mastley, who is our Chief HR Officer. Many of you are working with him for your HR consulting needs, and so he wanted to give you some best practices.
All right, thanks, Matt. Again, I'm Scott Mastley, and I appreciate y'all's time today and appreciate your faith in Thread and partnering with us for payroll and hopefully HR. If you have not partnered with us for HR yet, please do so. We'll be glad to help you out. So things to think about on the HR side at the end of the year is, are you taking advantage of the technology that's available to you? The clients who are working with us are loving going paperless for new hire onboarding. So they get rid of their paper new hire forms and having to collect those and try to read people's handwriting and dates and things like that. And you can set this up in an easy way in isolved, even with multiple profiles, where you can have 3 or 4 different profiles if you want, with different forms in each profile. So you just shoot an email, your new hire clicks on the link and completes all their new hire forms, and they're stored right there in isolved, where they're easy to access, and you don't have to worry about them being in a paper file or disappearing when someone gets terminated. I know that happens as well when people have file cabinets sitting around. So take advantage of this. You could go paperless with your performance management, your new hire. There's just all kinds of ways to use this. I have clients who are still tracking on spreadsheets or other places, laptops and t-shirt sizes and computers and uniforms and all kinds of stuff like that. And you can do all of that right in the system. So if you're not doing that, ask us how to do it so we can help you take advantage of that to save you some time. In terms of your handbook, employee handbook, your other forms and policies, have you reviewed those? Have you updated those? Are they ready for 2021? Are they what you want them to be, is really what I'm asking. Because a lot of times when I start working with new clients, they'll say, we've been wanting to do our handbook for 2 years, and we've been wanting to revamp our pre-hire, new hire policy, or performance management, or whatever it is, maybe even leave of absence policy. Then you can do that. And we have resources where we can help you do this stuff pretty quickly. And you don't have to take an off-the-shelf thing. We can customize it for you So just want to make sure that you're thinking through these things. If you don't have COVID related policies and forms and plans, then we can help you with that as well. So reach out and make sure you're prepared for those things. The employee handbook is really important because state laws change all the time. I'm on a little update feed that gives me state law updates for posting requirements and things like that. And I get 2 or 3 notifications a day for different states. That's how often it happens. Georgia, luckily, is not as frequent as some of the other states, but it does happen. So keeping the handbook up to date keeps you compliant with changes in court law, in existing law, and posting requirements and everything else. So we have multi-state resources that we use to keep you up to date with that, and we can make this pretty easy for you. So take advantage of that if you haven't already. Any compliance gaps, so if you know you're missing I-9s, your files aren't proper, your wage and hour compliance might not be correct. In other words, you're calling people exempt who probably are not. They're probably hourly employees. If you think you're worried about that and that's something you'd like to evaluate and maybe even change and correct, you can talk to us about that as well. End of the year, new year is a good time to do changes like that. So if you're aware of any compliance gaps you have, or if you're not aware of what they are, then I would suggest working with someone like us so you can identify what those gaps are and then decide how you want to address them going forward. We typically give you a low risk, high risk option, or middle of the road. Let you decide. It's your business. You decide how much risk you want, and we'd be glad to work with you on that. And then organized and prepared for 2021. So I like to use the end of the year, even though everyone's super busy, to just say, okay, how could I be more efficient next year in my HR department, right? Do I have a email filing system that's working for me? Or do I have a process that's been costing me extra time that I need to fix next year? Or is there a task that I need to hand off to somebody at my team? Whatever it is, it's just a good time at the end of the year to sit back and say, okay, what frustrated me during 2020 besides all the usual stuff that we're all dealing with, like pandemic related and everything else? But what frustrated you process-wise that you might be able to fix in 2021, and how can you address that? And then continued COVID challenges. This is the kind of thing that is really starting to be a drag for everybody, because it just has not gone away. We are all dealing with employees who are exposed or either having COVID symptoms, and we all want it to be over, but it's not over. So we understand how frustrating it is, and we just want to be able to help you as much as we can with any COVID related challenges, so you're prepared for situations that happen and are going to continue to happen for a little while. And then go beyond basic compliance and policies and forms and things like that, the nuts and bolts of HR, right? And think about, what is our candidate experience? When people apply for a job at our company, is it a quick, easy process for them? Because the longer it takes and the harder it is, the more candidates are just going to bail on the process and go somewhere else. I mean, if it's longer than 5 minutes, 10 minutes for them to submit an application, they may just abandon it and go somewhere else where it's easier, believe it or not. So look at your application pre-hire process and see how easy it is for candidates to apply. Do you have questions set up already in your postings that screen for you? So it will save you hours and hours of time instead of going through paper resumes that you printed out. Try to do that screening in advance, take advantage of that, and we have systems that can help you with that as well. And think about, do you have messages that you're replying to candidates? Thank you for applying, we'll let you know. Is there a follow-up, an automated process there where they get notification? Because that is something that candidates really pay attention to. And what's different in the world of recruiting now is that every candidate, people who don't even become an employee of your company, can rate your application process and experience online, and other candidates will look at that to see how it rates. So it's important to have a good candidate experience as well as a good employee experience. And that's the next bullet here, which is, are there things you can do in your culture, in your company? Are there trust issues? Are there employees who are getting burnt out? Are there people who are having mental health issues with COVID. That's very common now. So think about what you can do to help your employees. Do you have an employee assistance program? Do you have resources for them that can help them get through this time, which is pretty challenging for everybody, not just at work, but at home? Are there things you can do to increase transparency, to elevate the leadership team and the skills of your management team? Do your employees know what's going on, how you make money, what you do, what you expect, how their success is measured? All of those things can make a big difference. And then the other biggest thing that has happened in the last few years is that when employees start with a company, they really want to know, how can I get from A to B? So I understand this is the position you're hiring me for now, but how can I get from here to the next level within the company? And if you can map that out for them and show them what they need to know and be able to do and how long it normally takes and stuff like that, then you'll be able to retain employees longer, which is a competitive advantage in today's workplace because people hop jobs so often now. Payroll data, I know that Matt and Brandon talked about that a little bit, but it's worth a second look just to say, okay, do I have people listed as leave of absence who've been back at work for a month? That kind of thing happens. Do I have employees who don't even work here anymore, whose status is still listed as active? Am I tracking reasons for termination in the system so that I can analyze those reasons and my turnover information at the end of the year? All that kind of stuff is worth double checking at the end of the year. Or do you even know how to do that? Sometimes you have this big system, but you only know how to use a little bit of it, which is typical of most of us. So say, okay, what do I have access to that I'm not using? And I can put that on my agenda to learn in 2021. If you look at your trends for turnover and incidents at work, try to figure out what causes are and how you can address those going forward so you can reduce those numbers, and that will help you with all the unwelcome things that come along with turnover. And then have you set your concrete goals for Q1 2021? So don't think about the whole year, just think Q1, 90 days, what can I do? What can I bang out? Don't list 30 things because that won't happen. Pick 2 or 3 that are really important that you can focus on and then break them down into small steps and get going. Start today. Don't even wait until tomorrow. Just go ahead and say, what can I do today to get this going? And then the last thing is just a shameless plug for Thread Engage, which is our HR service, which I feel obligated to throw in here because that's what I'm doing at Thread, is helping our clients with HR services. Our services are built for small businesses and priced for small and growing businesses. So we want to partner with you, give us a chance to help you out with all of the things we discussed and much more.
That's great. Well, Scott, thank you so much. And just to kind of wrap up, we've got a couple questions that we want to leave time, so feel free to chat them in the moderated thing, or of course, just reach out to your account manager directly if we can personally answer for you. But to shamelessly plug Scott, he has done a fantastic job with many of our clients. As much as we've been doing this, we've realized like software doesn't ultimately solve the problem, and so that piece is why Scott is here, because we really want to make a difference in helping you build a better workplace. So with that being further ado, I'm going to do a Q&A, and why don't I just quickly moderate it? Brandon, I may have a question or two for you with the team, and then we'll share that. So again, if you have any other ones, chat it. I only see about 1 or 2, and then we'll wrap it up. But one question was, Brandon, we had going back to the employee name not matching on the social. The question was, they've updated the discrepancy in isolved, and is there anything else they need to do once they've updated the name in isolved?
Once they've updated the name, as long as the social matches what's on their social security card, that should be all they have to do. That should be it.
Great. Yep. And there's the is it the given name field? What's the name of the field that's like you can do the preferred name? I believe it's called preferred.
Name is kind of like, this is what people call me, but the first name, last name is what we really want to be like their actual legal name.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. So, and I highly recommend again using the preferred name. My full name is, believe it or not, Wilson Matthew Micham. Got made fun of a lot in the early days of kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. But originally, I did Matt Micham in the system, as the first, but that's not a match there. So I actually had to go back, change it, put my full name in, then use the preferred field of Matt, which was what I go by. So that's a personal example from learning on that one.
Exactly.
One other question that people had. So back to the W-2s and the idea of electronic W-2s. How does an employee go to activate receiving W-2s electronically, or does that happen automatically?
So what should have happened, assuming that we've turned it on for that client, as soon as that person logs in, or if they haven't logged in like 6 months, the next time they log in, there should be a little automatic pop-up that says, "Hey, do you approve?" It's going to have a whole message broken out. Do you approve? Blah blah blah, and it'll have agree or decline. They should have already checked if we've had that activated for them. They should have already agreed to that some time ago. But again, they
Mhm.
can pull that report that we mentioned and see who has actually consented and who has not.
Correct. That's great. And again, most clients have this on by default now. So I think most are going paperless in this case, but go run that report, check it. If you're missing some of those dates that are missing of date consent, just reach out to your account manager. We'll help you and get it situated for you.
Yeah, if someone's missing a date, just reach out to your team and we'll get it sorted out.
That's great. Well, hopefully this was helpful. I know there's so many things that we could get. We want to hit the highlights of where we see most that are tripped up during this time. But at the end of the day, we are here for you. We are here to help be a guide. And again, in a just incredibly disorienting year for all of us. So I'm not sure if you're like I am just ready for 2021 to begin. So let's make sure that we finish strong here. And of course, reach out to us if we can help with anything else. With that being said, I think that's it. And we appreciate your time. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all take care.